Members, good morning. This is the meeting of the Bills Committee on Securities and Futures Amendment Bill 2013, the first meeting. First, we have to elect a chairman. Any nomination? Mr. Wong Kwok? I nominate Mr. Kam-lam, and he's willing. Any seconder? All right, seconder. Mr. Wong Ting-kwong, according to Mr. Wong Ting-kwong, Mr. Kam-lam is willing. But will he be here this morning or not? Well, he's out of town. All right, any other nominations, please? Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I nominate Mr. Kenneth Leung. Are you willing to accept? I do. Any seconder? Any seconder? All right, since there is no seconder, I will do so. All right, Mr. Chan Kim-po seconds. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? No? Then we've got two candidates.
I
find it really problematic. Mr. To, this is not the first time. Well, I find it problematic. All right. Please note, number one is Mr. Chan Kam-lam. Number two, Mr. Kenneth Leung.
OK， 好，宣布結束。好，我哋。
We'll count the votes now. Regarding conflict of interest, well, it is about pecuniary interest. If a declaration has been made, there shouldn't be any problem. But then, because Mr. Chan Kun-lam is not in Hong Kong and he doesn't have the opportunity to declare interest, I don't know whether Mr. Wong Ting-kwong can make any on his behalf. Well, as far as I know, Mr. Chan Kam-lam is a member of the SFC. But as the legal advisor said, declaration of interest is mainly about pecuniary interest. I understand that members of the SC, well, he is a paid director. As far as I know, he isn't. He is a non-executive director. It doesn't matter. If Mr. Wong Ting-kwong doesn't have any declaration of interest on behalf of Mr. Chan Kam-lam, we will then register no declaration of interest. Well, when Mr. Chan Kam-lam is in town, he will declare on his own. But this is far from desirable. We're electing the chairman for the Bills Committee. I think this is risky to him. We say here that there must be a declaration of interest and let members be informed before they vote. If there is pecuniary interest and not declared, then there's something wrong, possibly something wrong with the procedures. Legal advisor, please comment. Thank you. No, this is not about whether he's willing or not. This is not about Mr. Sin Chung Kai queried whether there is any pecuniary interest involved. But of course, even so, it's up to members to decide how to vote. But he hasn't made any declaration, so we can only cast our votes on that basis. As the chair who accepted Mr. Kam-lam's nomination as a valid candidate, and yet he's absent, I'm afraid that there might be it might be unfair to him. Mr. Wong Ting-kwong said that. Well, since you said so, Chairman, let me tell you categorically that Mr. Kam-lam doesn't receive any remuneration from SFC. This is a fact. Perhaps the Secretariat or the legal advisor can confirm this. For other declaration of interest, of course, I cannot do it on his behalf. I can only help him to make a declaration as to whether he is a paid director of SFC. Now, if this fact is wrong, it can be very risky. I understand. I will shoulder this responsibility. Not for you to shoulder, but for him. He will certainly shoulder this responsibility because it is a well-known fact. All right, let it be noted then. Registered. Mr. Sin Chung Kai? I know Mr. Kam-lam is not an executive director. Perhaps my memory is wrong, but my understanding that they do receive an honorarium. So I think there is pecuniary interest involved. That's my understanding. Well, it doesn't matter. I can't make any ruling unless there are more authoritative information to let me know whether Mr. Wong Ting-kwong's declaration or Mr. Kam-lam's declaration is correct or not. No, I'm not making any declaration on his behalf. I know, but you have reminded me to consider whether a non-executive director of SFC is paid or not. Does he receive any honorarium? So I can only assume that the information submitted by Mr. Wong Ting-kwong on behalf of Mr. Kam-lam is correct. Speakers off mic. Members asked whether an absent member can be nominated. According to our House rules, 21E, the Bills, Chairman of Bills Committee is to be elected amongst the members of the Bills Committee, and then a Deputy Chairman can also be appointed. And in deciding whether an absent member can be nominated to run for the chairman or deputy chairman, it must be confirmed that the absent member has accepted his nomination first. As this point was confirmed by Mr. Wong Ting-kwong, so I confirm that Mr. Kam-lam can be duly nominated. All right. Can I invite members to come to monitor the counting of votes? Yes, Mr. Wong Ting-kwong, you have a supplement. I just went to confirm that Mr. whether Mr. Kam-lam's office with SFC is paid or not. According to my understanding, yes, he does receive $300,000 per year. All right, then we have a difficulty here. Legal advisor. Members may refer to ROP This is about disclosure of pecuniary interest, that is ROP 83 capital letter A. If a member feels that he has any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any matter, he cannot move any motion or amendment or to speak on that particular item. So this is ROP 83A. But can he be the chairman? Well, he can be the chairman without moving any motion or amendments to the motion. Another fact is, Mr. Kam-lam, I believe, has served the SFC for quite a while, serving the SFC for a while. Well, in my 9 years of experience as a legislator, I can say that this is not the first time Mr. Kam-lam chairs a Bills Committee to vet securities or financial matters related bills. Well, it depends on whether this information was ever sought or submitted. Well, according to the legal advisor, I believe he cannot speak on related matters or move a motion or amendment relating to that motion. That doesn't mean that he cannot be the chairman of a Bills Committee. Well, I take that Mr. Kam-lam continue to be a candidate. But then, the information you provided to us on behalf of Mr. Kam-lam was not disclosed before the election. So, I will ask members, what do you think? Do we have to cast our votes again after considering this matter? Mr. Sin Chung Kai? Well, to be fair, since you've ruled that he has the right to continue to be a candidate, well, because this is a new piece of information, since the votes are not yet opened or counted yet, well, for procedural fairness, shall we cast the votes again so that we can elect the chairman fairly with the new information known to us? Mr. Chang Kim-po, I don't mind whether you ask us to cast the votes again. I just want to ask our Secretariat whether this is okay or not. Because the so-called interest we just discussed, we all know that Mr. Kam-lam receives honorarium as a non-executive director of the SFC, and he has chaired similar meetings in the past. Well, you said that is a well-known fact, but then even Mr. Wong Ting-kwang, who nominated Mr. Kam-lam and who made a declaration on behalf of Mr. Chen, was wrong. Well, if it was a well-known fact, then whether he receives any honorarium has nothing to do with this matter. Because the most important thing is whether he has any pecuniary interest in this matter. Well, he does have a pecuniary interest, and as a result, he cannot do the things referred to by the legal advisor. But we'll talk about whether he can be the chairman of the Bills Committee. So what's the difference? Well, this is material consideration. As the chairman of this Bills Committee, he cannot speak and he cannot move any motion or amendment. Is that what you meant, legal advisor? Under 83A? He shall not move any motion or amendment relating to a matter in which he has a pecuniary interest, except where he discloses the nature of the interest. I fail to understand. How come we cannot understand such a basic point after he has made the declaration? That's perfectly okay.
All right. Understood. You've told us your view, Mr. Chen. Next. Now, Kam-lam has been the chairman of many committees, or well, I did not challenge his position because at that time he was not dealing with issues related to SFC. But now this Bills Committee is about SNF and is also related to SFC. So there is this impression that he has conflict of interest. This is my view. I'll first consider the legal advice by legal advisor to see whether we are breaking any procedures if we vote after we got the information we got just now. Chairman, I can only say that I have never come across this. Now for House Rules 21E, there is no rule saying that on conflict of interest of chairman in the Bills Committee, or I should say there's no particular regulation on such a matter. I think Mr. Chan has a point, because under 80, this amendment bill is to provide for regulatory framework for the over-the-counter derivative market in Hong Kong and incorporate other technical improvements to the regulation of the financial market. Now, is this directly related to Mr. Chen Kam-lam? We're not proposing adjusting his honorarium, but the amendment bill will enhance the power of SFC, and Mr. Chen is a non-executive member of SFC, and he receives honorarium. So we're not talking about increasing his honorarium, but the power of the SFC will be enhanced. So I think, now let's consider the following matter. If this interest is not declared and he gets involved in matters mentioned by the legal advisor, then it is a breach of the rule. That's why it's so important to make declaration. Shall we follow the existing convention and the rules? Well, I think for conflict of interest, we're talking about pecuniary interest, and I'm sure members know that he has no personal pecuniary interest. But if members are not happy with the system, then we can discuss it later. Now, it's not fair to trouble someone who has already made declaration. Now, before we make any changes to the rules, then we should follow the existing rules. What do you mean by that? Now, on the one hand, Mr. Chen receives honorarium. And are you saying this is not related to the rule quoted by the legal advisor? I think receiving honorarium is related to this matter. So he is a director and he receives honorarium. All right, he is a non-executive member who receives honorarium. Well, he has pecuniary interest and he is a paid member in the SFC. I think the rule only applies to a member who has personal and direct pecuniary interest. Under 83A, direct and indirect pecuniary interest are mentioned. But with this interest, it doesn't bar any member from running as a for chairman. And after declaration of such interest, the member can move motion and vote on motion. 83A states that all these acts should not be carried out unless the member has declared the interest mentioned in 83A. Be it member or chairman, pecuniary interest should be disclosed before he votes or moves an motion. Now, for a person receiving honorarium who is a non-executive member, do we consider him has any pecuniary interest. Reading out the rule is not helping at all. I think the legal advisor answered my question. Legal advisor advice is that we should consider whether the honorarium is a kind of pecuniary interest. Let me give another example. If Mr. Chen operates a company dealing in OTC derivative products, this itself is a pecuniary interest. Now, this bill enhance SFC power, and do we consider the non-executive member receiving honorarium having a pecuniary interest? I think as long as he declares he receives honorarium, he can operate in this Bills Committee normally. He can run in the chairman election. I already ruled that he can be one of the candidates. Mr. Wong, I respect your ruling, Chairman. Every member, apart from working as a legislator, we have other work. I am a businessman, and I have business, export and import businesses. And I have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to matters on businesses. Now, does it mean that I can't touch any matters in LegCo which are about businesses? Now, you yourself is a lawyer. Does it mean that you cannot touch any matters that's related to laws, to legislation in this council? I don't think this is reasonable. Mr. Christopher Chung is from the S&F sector. Does it mean that he can't discuss any matters related to S&F? And Mr. Kenneth Leung is an accountant. Does it mean that he cannot discuss any matters? He cannot get involved in the matters related to the accountants sector? Now, it's up to members to tread with caution and declare interest. And having done that, such records will be with LegCo, and I checked his records in LegCo. It says that he is not receiving a remuneration but honorarium. And on the other hand, I think we are subject to monitor the public monitoring. People can see whether there is any bias. Mr. Leung, I want to leave aside the pecuniary interest, but I'd like to ask the legal advisor the following question. Let me give you an example. For a private member's bill, the sponsoring member cannot be the chairman in that Bills Committee. Now, the sponsoring committee in this bill is SFC, is one of the bodies. Let me give you a similar example. SFC and SFTB, they can be regarded as sponsoring bodies of the bill. Now, the bill will enhance powers of SFC, and Mr. Chen is one of the members of SFC, be it non-executive or executive members. This member represents SFC. So, legal advisor and Secretariat, please consider my points. About the sponsoring body and the private members' bill issues. Now, these people are the apparent representative of the organization, be they non-executive members or executive members, or whether they are on honorarium or not, or on remuneration or not. Can I seek the advice from legal advisor? Mr. Leung's point is misleading. I am a non-executive member of MPFA. Now, does it mean that I cannot deal with any legislation related to MPF? We are legislators. Does it mean that we can't even discuss constitutional reform legislation? That's not what I mean. There is a rule saying that this person cannot be the chairman of the Bills Committee. I think you mean the chairman of a panel committee, For private member bill, that mover cannot be the chairman of the Bills Committee. Well, I don't have any position. I'm simply asking the legal advisor to consider my points. Secretary, clerk, supplement. Private members bill. Earlier on, there's a set of paper in House Committee on that. The mover of the bill, it's not appropriate for the mover of the bill to be the chairman of the Bills Committee. There's a paper on that. But the bill we have here is not a private member's bill. Right. Mr. Cheng, I'm not going to talk about whether someone has the right to run as a chairman. Rather, I think we need someone familiar with the regulatory system of the market and who is familiar with S&F. I really dare not say who is eligible and who's not to run. We're talking about the procedure here, Mr. Cheng, and I have to make a difficult ruling. Mr. Wong Ting-kwong gave us a piece of information, and I have to rule whether we should vote again after this piece of important information is revealed to us. Mr. Ng Leung Sing. Now, it's fine for a member to be absent and run as a candidate. Of course, it's better if he is here with us so he can give us a clear idea about the interest. Now, I think members are clear about the bills with us. The rules are with us, and if any part of the bill is in conflict with his interest, now I'm not quite worried about that because this is an open meeting and is in live broadcast. And I think it's very rare for a chairman to influence any parties in a committee. So far, we are discussing whether the interest will affect the fair scrutiny of the bill. I don't think it will. I am also an independent director. And I don't think the bill will increase the interest to be gained by this member in the future. I don't think there is such a possibility, so we don't have to worry too much. He is receiving honorarium, but it's not salary. I don't think it will influence anything. So let's deal with it quickly. I am not against voting again.
Okay.
Okay. I have to think about this first. Because there's no precedent, I want 5 minutes to think about this. I ask for your forbearance. So we resume after 5 minutes.